Hi, this is Maximo with Visual Marketing Partners. I'll be going over the install for Rag & Bone. These are the different components for our install: eye bolts, turnbuckles, the carabiners, the spring nuts for electrical, spring nuts for the perpendicular bar, which you're going to be lowering as close as you can to the bezel, your M8 screws with washers, your wire clamps, and zip ties with bases. Over here are the structural components, which are the horizontal and perpendicular sections. The perpendicular sections that actually hang to the ceiling have holes which we will be modifying on site. We will look for a spot that's as close as possible to the bezel. Over here is just a standard install with the tags. We're just pulling them back with some gaffer tape, black gaffer tape. And there's a tag on each display. You'll see in a few seconds that there's a serial tag from Samsung that we want to block as well, since it's very reflective. Put some black gaffer tape on top of that as well, and it's basically rinse and repeat for the other ones. This is the horizontal support. You notice that I just rotated that because it just fit better the other way. You might have to modify this just maybe to get a snug fit. Our washers are tight inside the Unistrut, so you just got to slip them in from the side and get them over your mounting housing. Basically put in your M8 screw or bolt depending on which kit you got, and screw that in. If, especially in the middle section, if there's just pre-drilled holes and you don't want to throw the washer in there, that's okay too. That'll 100% hold. Did the same thing in the bottom as well. Just rotate it around to fit better. Look for position, slip in the washers through the side, and basically screw that down. In this section, we're laying down the electrical strip. That will take a spring nut, which is a 3/16 spring nut. It'll have a smaller hole. So we're just looking for a good positioning. Pretty much the middle usually works out best. It's just centralized for all of your electrical. Once you get your positioning, just screw one side in. I slightly torqued it a little bit towards me, and it went right into the spring nut. So there's only two of them, two screws. Then basically after that you bring the electrical component and just snap it in place. It's basically once you get one section, one side in, you just give it a little bit of a force down and it just snaps into place. So a nice even force. I just did in the corner and then went straight down, and that was pretty much it. So for the perpendicular section, we place the 1/4" spring nuts and place our perpendicular Unistrut. This should be set up as close as you can to the bezel with the eye bolt in a horizontal position. It's going to be ideal that it ends like that. As a matter of fact, at the end of the scene, when we're done housing this, you will see a 3D rendering of where the eye bolt has to rest with the carabiner. Very crucial. This is how the Unistrut has to ride against the bezel. We want it as close as possible. There's a very minimal space of where the carabiner and the eye bolt stay. That's very close to the bezel. Here we're attaching our front screw for the eye bolt. We basically thread it as close as possible and get the registration for it by noticing how close it is to the bezel. Over here we just have our helper just holding the nut. That is a lock nut, and just strutting it right through until we have it snug against the Unistrut. So now is the wiring process. We run everything underneath the uni strut as possible, keep everything centralized in between the two horizontal bars. As you can see, we're just trying to make it as neat as possible, coil things together, and zip tie them, use a base if we need, and just cut off any excess from the zip tie. It's pretty much a rinse and repeat process. It is vital too for the project that everything is kept as neat as possible, low profile. It gets a little crazy, but we've got it to a point where the client was happy with what we came up with. The splitter we try to place in the middle, once again just to centralize everything and have the easy accessibility to running our HDMI cables. As you can just, if you just saw right now, I just ran that underneath. Zip tied everything with a base. The HDMI cables tend to be a little bit thicker, so you're probably going to need a base. The bright sign unit, I just backed the screw out for the horizontal bar, slipped it underneath, and retightened it. Ran my HDMI cable once again underneath. And that's pretty much it. Just try to keep things as neat as possible, and try not to have a wire hanging out in a weird position. And you're pretty much at the end. This just gets hung now. Once again, this is a little bit different. We will not be hanging like this. Unfortunately, the client does not want the bolt to be vertical. It has to be horizontal. So once again, I'm showing you this 3D drawing just to make sure that you guys understand that it has to be close to the bezel and horizontal, not vertical. We also want it to be clipped right behind the eye bolt. As you can tell from the photo, it's the smaller part of the carabiner is what's holding it against the eye bolt in the back,